Harlan Crow, this wealthy Republican donor, is making a series of tuition payments for Thomas's grandnephew, who Thomas was raising as a son.
We're talking potentially in excess of $150,000. This was at two private boarding schools, one in Virginia and one in Georgia.
Has Justice Thomas offered any explanation at all as to why he thought this was proper behavior?
So Justice Thomas did not respond to our questions for this latest story.
Oh my God! Clarence Thomas let his billionaire Republican donor friend give the family a gift of at least $150,000, and Thomas didn't disclose it and now won't talk about it? Come on, are you kidding me? And this comes on top of reports a few weeks ago that the same billionaire took Thomas on lavish luxury trips at no cost and paid for Thomas's mother's home in Georgia. There is corruption, and then there's this crap with Clarence Thomas, and yet most conservatives are saying, no big deal, Democrats are just picking on Justice Thomas. On that issue, here is Joe Scarborough.
There is nothing that people on the Trump right can do that is going to get condemnation from most Republicans. I mean, this is a sort of stuff. I can't even imagine if any federal judge that I practiced under had taken 1/100th of these sort of gifts. I can't imagine they wouldn't be up for impeachment.
Here's another way to think about it, as the Morning Joe crew noted. If a Supreme Court clerk had taken $150,000 in gifts for his or her family, or had taken lavish luxury trips with somebody who had issues in front of the court, that clerk would be removed from the court immediately. Likewise, if a journalist had taken money or gifts from people they were reporting on, that journalist would lose all credibility. Seriously, this is not hard to follow. Justice Thomas should be removed from the court. He is corrupt. He is also a hypocrite. Thomas has long used an originalist or contextualist approach to interpreting the Constitution. That means he strictly adheres to the letter of what's in the Constitution. Here's Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson.
Justice Thomas expects us to take seriously his reading of the subtlest nuances of our Constitution and what every clause means in the original and everything. You know, very, very carefully parsing that. And he also wants us to believe he can't understand the very simple instructions on a disclosure form.
It's ridiculous, and the court's doing nothing. John Roberts, who I've always said was an institutionalist, certainly not acting like an institutionalist now.
Indeed, John Roberts keeps ignoring the Clarence Thomas controversies. When asked to testify to the U.S. Senate about Supreme Court ethics policies, the Chief Justice has refused and instructed lawmakers to take their concerns to a judicial conference. That's basically a group of federal judges who get together occasionally and pontificate on court protocols. And yet the controversies over Clarence Thomas keep building. Remember, after the 2020 election, Thomas's wife Ginny exchanged text messages with Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows about overthrowing the election results. And never mind that, Ginny Thomas for years has been a lobbyist for conservative groups with cases before the court. And now we find out that the Thomases have been taking lavish luxury trips and expensive gifts from a conservative billionaire with issues before the justices at the Supreme Court. I mean, this is beyond absurd. Imagine if this was a more liberal justice like Elena Kagan or Sonia Sotomayor getting expensive gifts from a liberal donor or group with issues in front of the court. The Republicans would be going crazy, and they would be right to be infuriated. If the justice stayed on the court, that would be outrageous. Well, anybody with any sense of integrity or shame should be outraged by Clarence Thomas and should be calling for his removal. And this matters. Again, here's Joe Scarborough.
The Supreme Court's credibility with the American people is at an all-time low.
And when the U.S. Supreme Court is lacking in credibility, our nation is in deep trouble. Our democracy depends on at least some level of faith in the institutions around us. But Clarence Thomas has taken the court down the same path as our elected leaders and underscored the idea that everything in our government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the courts, can be bought, and that the only thing that really matters is what the billionaire donors and their corporate interests want. What a shame. By the way, conservatives are still mad at Bud Light for promoting LGBTQ rights, and there's a wild video circulating of a Trumpster in a bikini opening fire on cases of the beer. Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.